start recording, by the way, too. So just so you all know, I was asked to do it. Why don't we go to Vicki?
Hi, I'm Vicki Broden. I'm in District 5080. I'm in Colville, Washington, and I've been running the Colville High School Interact Club for about 7 years. I'm also the co-chair for the Interact District Committee, and our next step is to do exactly what you're going to present today. So I'm really excited about it. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Carl.
Yeah, Peter, good morning, everybody. My name is Carl Ruth. I'm the DGN for District 5060. And our Interact program in the district really has faltered in the last couple of years, and it's a royal shame. And I'm trying to figure out how to reinvigorate that program throughout the district. And it's an uphill battle, but we need to start somewhere. And here I am trying to figure out what I can do.
Excellent. Well, welcome. Glad you're here. Lorna, are you able to unmute? I know you're on your phone. Hey, there you
go. Yeah. Hang on. I was trying to X. Unable to Zoom is X. Okay. I'd have to go to settings, I guess. It won't do camera. Whatever.
We can hear you.
Anyways, I am in Fresno, California as well. And I was at the middle school level and did club there for 13 years. I'm at the high school level and I'm on my 6th year at the high school level. I've had probably the most at one time, maybe 80 kids involved. My norm would probably be more like 35. And this past 2 years, boy, to get 20 kids, and of course this year to get 10, and it's just, it's heartbreaking to try to, the kids, obviously we can't go out and do things, although we've got an event tomorrow and we were out at an event last week, and we're just starting to get back into community projects. But yeah, the kids don't want to be on the screen. They don't want to show up on screen. They're done. So more of it is about mental health right now, and more of it is just keeping them positive through this time than serving the community. It's more like serving the leaders and just helping them through this time.
Great. Well, thank you. Thanks for being here. Can we go to Marie? Just a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about yourself.
Got it. Sorry I was late. I'm not updated apparently.
We're all good. We're still on time, so don't worry.
Good. Okay, Marie Baker. I'm from District 5400, which is all of southern Idaho from the east to west border, 2 clubs in Oregon. And I am our new generation / youth services chair. And I'm really interested. We have a really great Interact chair, but we have maybe throughout our district 10 clubs. At best, this year has been shaky like everyone, but really I'm looking to the future of how do we create a great foundation with an Interact council and that sort of thing, and really get the youth excited about driving their own program.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here. Anita, are you able to unmute yourself? You want to say hello? And just say who you are, what district you're with, where you're at, and what brings you here.
I'm from District 5220 in California. It's basically the Central Valley in California plus foothills and mountain clubs, 43 clubs. This is my first year as the district Interact chair. Our district has not had a lot of activities on a district level. So I'm excited about learning more about the district council. Right now I just have a set of officers that I've tried for the first year. And that's been very gratifying, but we're just beginners. I'm here to learn. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for being here. And then Burnett, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Would you like to unmute and say hello? And if not, it's okay. I can actually unmute you. There we go. See if that'll work.
Are you there, Burnett? Well, she's actually from my district and taking it over.
Oh, she's here. We got her.
I was having trouble unmuting.
No problem.
So hi, I'm Burnett Green. I'm with District 5230. And like Becky said, Becky's our district Interact queen now and in charge of overseeing Interact. And I'm going to take over for her for the next Rotary year. So, and we have talked about, district councils for the kids, and also here to just get more information and learn as much as I can so that I can follow in her fine footsteps.
Excellent. Great. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thanks everyone for coming to the to this breakout. My name's Peter Allen. I'll get into a little bit more about myself and our district in a second. I'm just going to go back to the little deck that I prepared, but it's not going to be too, oh, hold on. There we go. Can you all see the big blue slide again? Yay. Okay, good. All right, so we're here today, as we all know, to talk about district councils, and that's going to include the pros and the cons, some of the success stories that I can share from our district, sort of the structure that we use, and really I'm here to, assist and be a facilitator for you. What would you like to know? I feel like we have a pretty robust council in our and leadership in our district for Interact, but it's by necessity because we are such a broad district and we have a lot of clubs and a lot of engagement from more than 6,000 students. So it's a great, from my perspective, it's a great thing to have, but there are challenges and there are great opportunities too. So really quickly, if we can kick off here, just for a little bit of housekeeping. If you haven't already, if you could just drop your district number in your name, if you're able to do that, or alternatively, and we've already sort of done this, if you want to go in the chat and drop your name, your district, your leadership role, or what role you have in the district or with Interact, and then one thing you'd hope to take away from this session, and just be as brief as possible, like one sentence. That'll help me make sure that we cover all our bases, but it'll also be good to have that record, so maybe I can follow up with y'all later on any issues or questions you might have. You are being recorded. We're recording these sessions, so it'll be available later if you want to come back and see my lovely face and all your lovely faces again. And then, of course, just general rule, be nice, follow the 4-way test. I'm going to try to do that myself. I tend to talk a lot, but I also like to listen. So I have to remember to do both in equal equal measure. So just be respectful of everyone else. And I think we're going to have a good little session here. We're going to go until about 10:50. So we have quite a bit of time. So I won't talk for that long. I want to hear your questions. I want you guys to interact with each other too, no pun intended. So this is me, Peter. Hi. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm the co-chair, as I mentioned to folks who popped on a little early, of Interact in District 5170. 5170 runs from the East Bay and the San Francisco Bay area, if you're familiar with it, Alameda County area, Oakland, all the way down to Santa Clara County, where I'm based in San Jose, which is the so-called capital of Silicon Valley. And then we also stretch down to Santa Cruz County along the coast as well, and into Gilroy and southern parts of our county. So if you've ever come up Highway 101, you've been through Gilroy, you've been through San Jose, you've been through my district. My Rotary Club is Campbell, but we also represent West San Jose, which is where I live. Campbell just won the branding war when a few of the clubs merged back in the day. And my day job is as a marketing communications consultant. I have actually just been recently hired full-time. I work at the San Jose Public Library Foundation, which is the 501c branch of our city library here. And I serve as their communications consultant communications coordinator, no longer a consultant. So that's a little bit about me. This is a little bit about our Interact in our district. We are, like I said, I believe still the largest in terms of participation Interact district in the world, which I'm incredibly proud of. But I also appreciate quality over quantity too. So I can't say that all 133 of our clubs in all 13 areas are as active as the next one, right? There is definitely some inconsistency depending on who's involved at the time at the school, either from the student or the faculty level. But at any given point, we have about 6,000-ish students involved in these 133 clubs as members. And almost all of our clubs, I'll note, are school-based. I think we have 2 community-based Interact clubs. And for those of you who, I probably should do a poll, but those of you who are not as familiar with Interact, clubs can be started either at the school level and through a school advisor, or at the community level around an affinity or a common cause or a value, or really just a neighborhood of a high school or middle school students that want to participate. I've got most of you on, if you could just maybe raise your hand or just wave or do some sort of thumbs up. How many of you have been involved in Interact for more than 5 years? Anyone? Becky, let's say a couple. Great. How about 10 years? With a thumbs up. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I noticed that was one thing I noticed from the poll earlier. About 40% of the respondents said they had 10 or less clubs in their district. 55% said had 3 years or less experience with Interact, and I actually fall sort of right near that frame. And quite a few were sort of unsure of a few of the different facets of the Interact world. So I think that's great because it means that we're all here to learn, and we're all going to learn from each other. Just wanted to get a sense of the room here. So anyway, this is a snapshot of my district. And what we're going to cover today, pretty simple and straightforward. District councils. So what is a district council, right? What is and I can give you some perspective from my district of what it looks like. Recruitment. So who are these wonderful students who step up to lead their fellow interactors? Training, in that how do we as co-chairs or in my case co-chairs, or as chairs or Rotary advisors, or even through we have, like I said, I mentioned before, youth advisors in our Interact. How do we support the district council? How do we support their leadership so that they can spread that leadership back to their clubs? Functions, how does the district council support their clubs? How do they, what does the district council do to uplift their individual clubs, but also provide access to resources and other tools to help the club succeed? Pros, of course, what works, and of course the cons, what doesn't. So we're going to walk through all of this in short order, but I want to come back to what are district councils. As you'd imagine, as you have with your own districts, right? There's a leadership team in your club, right? In your Rotary club, there's a leadership team at the board. There's usually a board or directors or a leadership council at the district level. For example, Chris Miller, who you heard from earlier, is our youth services chair at my district level. So he's the guy that I report to. And then he reports to our district governor and the rest of the board. It's very similar in District 5170, at least, in that we have a governor. We have what's called a lieutenant governor. So we don't have a governor-elect or a nominee. The governor and the lieutenant governor are pretty much a tandem role. Neither one, I wouldn't say that the lieutenant governor is not sort of like the vice president in that it's not worth a bucket of warm, whatever Harry Truman said. It's actually a legit role. They're pretty much partners, but we do have one governor who makes the ultimate decisions. And then beneath that, the governors have a set of leaders. We have a secretary, a treasurer, and then teams, partners that work on marketing and digital marketing in our case, so website, social media. We even have a publicity team that specifically designs programs, flyers, resources, shirts, merch, like this amazing shirt from our projects last year. And Becky, I see your hand. I'll get to you in just 1 second. And then an outreach team to interactors who work specifically on coordinating with clubs, organizing new clubs. This year, particularly, we're focused on middle school recruitment and trying to organize more clubs at the middle school level. Almost all of our clubs are also, not, I would say almost all, 90% of our clubs are high school based. And then beyond that, there are, I mentioned we have 13 areas. We break down kind of like our Rotary district into 13 areas. And each of those areas, the clubs elect a leader to be their area director, or at least that person is nominated, and then the governors select who's going to be the area director for that year. And they represent the clubs in those areas. And there's anywhere from 7 to 10 to sometimes 12 clubs within an area, depending on the size of the clubs and the size of the schools. And all told, I'd have to refresh my memory, it's around 32, I believe, students who are part of the district council at any given time. Becky, you had a question. If you can unmute, I don't know if I have to ask you to. Wait, oh, sorry, go ahead, unmute yourself again. I accidentally muted you.
Someone had put in the chat about using the governor, type of lingo or whatever. I'd never heard that. Is that something that you were aware of that we shouldn't, or?
It's nothing I'd heard of before as far as impropriety. I think it's something that preceded me, to be honest with you, in District 5170. So I sort of inherited that. That said, I don't know that it's not a concern for Rotary, but I hadn't heard anything of that nature. So I would assume not. We've been, we're known, we're definitely known in Evanston. So if there was a problem, they'd probably let us know, but I can understand how it'd be a little confusing. In as much as I think Rotarians don't get confused so much as the interactors might, but they're both sides in our district at least are pretty savvy of how each other operates, even if we don't necessarily communicate as well as I'd like sometimes. So it doesn't lead to too much confusion. And I think it's really nice to, in terms of instilling that the lifelong Rotarian spirit, to create that kind of consistency and create that kind of memory of Rotary, so that as they grow, as they progress, hopefully to Rotaract and then beyond, the structure and that kind of leadership structure is sort of familiar to them, and it creates more bond to Rotary. So like I said, we have about a 32-member district council. They meet, I would say, regularly, but irregularly. It depends a lot on what's going on. So this group plans at a district level for big events like our fall leadership conference. And prior to that, even our new president's meeting over the summer, we invite all of the presidents of all the clubs to come together for a workshop in August, generally, to kick off the year. And then the third major event they plan is the President's Winter Retreat, which is sort of a big planning retreat session for all of the leadership throughout the district that looks ahead to the next year. And that happens every year around February. So 3 big events that this group plans, plus they also get together and organize our projects. So we have 1 community project, 1 international project every year that they raise funds for. And they organize district level fundraisers and merch sales and other tools to raise money for those projects. They also respond to issues that bubble up from the clubs, and do a lot of work to support the clubs in navigating with their PTAs or their student body associations at their schools, because a lot of times any money that they raise has to be funneled through some of these organizations. So there's a lot of challenges with running a club at a school level, and the district council, actually their peers, assist in that, and they issues bubble up to the district council. If they can't necessarily sort it out, we also have a team of advisors of around 6 to 7, hopefully. I've always loved more, usually former interactors, but volunteers who have stepped up either during their college years or their young professional years to help mentor our students in our district council specifically. So each advisor has sort of a specialty area or a group of area presidents that they help to support. And then beyond that, it's obviously myself and my co-chair Julie. We are the buck stops with us. We are the final line of defense between the interactors and our Rotary district. But at the same time, we really try to serve as bumper rails. Frankly, we find that our youth, especially Interact youth, are very organized. They're very thoughtful. They're very much type A kind of students. And they're already the ones that are stepping up to serve. So naturally, they're really organized. They're very astute in a lot of ways, even though they are still learning and growing. So what we do is try to help nurture them. And we try to nurture their leadership, empower them to be successful and to do great things, but also make sure that when things go off or, sliding off the rails, or if there's something that we don't feel they're taking seriously enough, or they're not addressing quickly enough, that's sort of where we step in. And our advisors do a great job of bringing those issues to us. So there's a nice chain of command, nice chain of feedback, a feedback loop. And we encourage our interactors to be as open with us as possible if they're having concerns, if they're having mental health and wellness issues, to come to us. And that's really the role that I like to serve, is to be more of a mentor than be too prescriptive about how, what design they have on the flyer for their fundraiser, or whether or not they're going to have a raffle or a silent auction. So that's generally what district council looks like in our district. Any questions about that so far? Any thoughts? Feel free to unmute yourself and just speak, because we've only got about 9 people here. So I think we're.
How long have you had that structure?
That's a fantastic question. It's been, it definitely, again, it preceded me. So I believe it's been at least 10, if not more years that we've had the structure. And it's functioned pretty well since I've been involved, at least. There hasn't been a whole lot of upheaval in terms of changing the format. And in fact, we're actually going through our district governor interviews next weekend, so that the current governor and the lieutenant governor solicit applications. It goes out broadly to all of the interactors, but generally speaking, district council members or area directors will step up to put themselves out there to be governor and lieutenant governor next year. So we're going to do interviews with them on Saturday, it looks like. We've already got a bunch of really good applicants.
So like if you don't have a structure like this at all, and you know, we have 10 areas, we have 50 clubs, they don't really know each other, or they're competing with each other in, you know, sports and stuff like that.
Sure.
How do you like get your arms around it to get to the kids? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To say we want to have an area rep and you guys have to find each other, and you know what I mean? It's like,
it's a fantastic question, right? How do you get, because obviously we're very well established. I'm very lucky to have stepped into a space where we've got a pretty good structure in place. I would say this, having done organizing like that in different areas of Rotary, but also in the community. I have a background in community organizing, and I work a lot in the nonprofit sphere, a lot with youth. The best thing you can do is start by throwing out the big net, reaching out to all of those Interact clubs, and all of anyone you have contact for through your Rotary clubs, or if there's a central database at the district, reach out to all of them and their advisors and come together and have a convening, right? It's fantastic that we can do it online now, but if it's possible, and I know sometimes depending on the size of your district, it can be geographically challenging, but find a way to bring them all together in a space and have a conversation about that. Say that offer the opportunity, not so much, like I said, no need to be prescriptive so much, as much as you would like to have the structure in place. And it's something that's the reason you're calling the meeting. So I would say allow them to sort of see the value of it. Tell them like, hey, we want to empower you. We want to bring you all together to do even bigger and better things than you're doing on your own. And we think one of the ways would be having this central council or this leadership structure to help keep us all coordinated. And you can bring some. I would, if you wanted, I'd be happy to come and tell a success story, or have one of my interactors come and tell a success story of what they've done, or one of our advisors. Have some people who can sort of speak to the experience, especially youth, who can speak to the power of the experience and the empowerment that they felt. And then also maybe bring up raise some issues that you've heard from the interactors about that could have been solved if you had a leadership structure like that, right? So just showing the value, I think, is really the most important thing. And then you honestly see what happens. You follow up. You do that. You keep sort of not pressing the issue, but make sure that you're getting feedback from them, from as many folks as possible. And I think you'll see that the youth that participate and interact, from my experience, I mean, like I said, they're Rotarians. They're young Rotarians, really. They are geared towards service. They're trying to find a way to say yes. And I think that if you prove the value, then that's the easiest way to get the buy-in. But then it's just it's going to require guidance to set up sort of the framework. But once you give them the framework, I think that it's fairly easy for them to take it up and take up the mantle and be successful. But I would start by having that big convening and bringing them together around the idea. Marie, I see you're raising your hand, and I think Anita too.
Well, I just had a thought, because Becky, we're in the same position as you. And what I have noticed working with the interactors, and I just kind of was thinking the same thing, how do we do this without being prescriptive? And thank you, Peter, for your comments. I'm even thinking if you even started with a quarterly convening or a monthly convening, I just have enough confidence in the youth that they're going to come up with something, and it might even be better. Because they've learned and been so resilient this last year that I imagine that they're going to come up with something really cool so that they can learn how to collaborate, connect, and impact the community in ways we never even thought of. And I just started thinking about it. Well, what would be the only thing that we would have to do? And I don't mean it flip, but I think you guys can appreciate what I'm saying, is provide the opportunity for them to convene. And I grant you, none of them want to. We have a huge geographical challenge in our district, so it would certainly have to be on Zoom. But you know what? I've realized the people that care enough are going to show up.
Yeah.
And so I'm just throwing that out there for people to think about, because my wheels are turning, Peter, as with probably everybody else here on this. But I think this is a great opportunity for all of us to really let them exercise those muscles in their brains and really come up with some unique opportunities. Anyway, I do like this model, though, that's kind of like Rotary, although Rotary's kind of flipping some things around too. So, you know, who knows?
Thank you. Thanks so much. Anita. Just make sure you're unmuted.
Okay.
There you go. You're on.
I don't know how it is for other people, but when I stepped into this position, the only communications that were going out about to the club level were through presidents. And what I found out is that the starting point for me in reaching out to the clubs was setting up a communication system with the advisors. So I don't know how your districts are set up, but I was happily sending out to a list of people that really no longer existed. It was so old. And so I found out, no, we have to start at the very first step on, do I really have a communication network set up with the people who need to receive this information? So it took a while to build that. And even if you start with the RI list, which is a spot to start, it's not gonna reach out. At least the ones that we have, the list that I have, most of the time it's the Rotarian. At the beginning, it was the Rotarian that was saying, okay, I'm gonna just put in my name, the youth advisor or whatever in the club. I'm gonna just put in my name and my email. And that was a place to start, but to really reach the people, you had to build a communication network directly to them, and that's slowly filtered in. So anyway, enough about that. I have one other question.
Please.
So when you're selecting your officers, basically your leadership group, instead of what you do is have an application process, and then you select from the applications. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And really quickly, if I could step back, just were you, when you were talking about outreach, are you mean to Rotary Club advisors or to the actual Interact clubs and the interactors in terms of like the challenge of making those connections and finding the right people? Did you freeze? Did I freeze? Oh, sorry.
I didn't get that.
No, I just wanted to, if you could clarify, you were talking about the challenge of outreach, right, and reaching all of the folks that were involved. Is that more challenging for you with Rotarians, right, with finding who the Rotary advisor at any Rotary club is, or is it more with the youth, like finding who the interactors and the leadership there?
There are some clubs that don't have youth advisors.
Right.
So.
Right. So it's a challenge. Both are a challenge.
Yeah, from my experience, I did the same thing. You know, I like to know who the Rotarian is in charge of the club, but I also like to know the teacher advisor. And so those are the two people that I have. And what I've done in my district is try to encourage the clubs to either make the teacher advisor honorary or a friend of Rotary. And that way they're in DAC-DB. So when you send out an email to all of them, you can capture those folks as well. And for the ones that aren't, I just have my own spreadsheet of teacher advisors that aren't on the system, and I send it to them separately.
That's great. That's absolutely a great idea. I'm gonna write that one down, actually. Yeah, and something we do in our some of our clubs, our Rotary clubs, and then with the Interact District Council, we actually create an email address that's permanent. So for example, there's a governor at interact5170.org. No matter who the current student governor is, the email goes to forwards to their email. So we were able to contact them, and that happens at the club levels too, or the area levels. So if I wanted to contact an area director, I just type in the area at the address and it goes to the right person. So highly encourage that for all clubs to have sort of standardized contact info somehow, or a voicemail, even if you need to do phone. Getting back to Anita's second question about the application process, I didn't want to drop that. The current governor and lieutenant governor and leadership are responsible for disseminating the application. So getting it out and publicizing it to the broader network of interactors. And then the applications come back and they're reviewed by both the current governor and lieutenant governor, as well as all of our youth advisors. So we have, like I said, we have anywhere from 6 to 8 advisors at any given time, college and young professionals, and then myself and my co-chair. And occasionally Chris, youth services chair for the district, if he's got the time, also participates. He's a very busy guy. So we review all the applications. We all participate in the interviews, but it is very much a team decision as to who gets selected. Julie and I, my co-chair, certainly offer our thoughts. We are very direct in our thoughts. We're very open. Like I said, we have a really good open relationship for the most part with our students, and they take and we try to be constructive with our criticism and also just really pointed with our notes. But at the end of the day, it is the governors, the current governors, who choose their successors. And they have, generally speaking, we get some consensus. We do scoring, we convene each other and discuss the nominees and the applications. But at the end of the day, they do choose their successors. So I haven't gotten to a situation where it was very contentious. Generally speaking, the best candidates do bubble to the top, and we all get to a pretty good place of consensus. But I could imagine a space where, because as they are, youth and adults get a little cliquey, right, and get a little bit into their friend zone, where there could be some contention between, who the governors might like, right, or think are fantastic, and who's actually going to be the best leader for the district. And Julie and I aren't afraid to tell them that if we have a feeling that that's the case. But what I love is that, one, almost all of the kids that apply, because it's a big job, it's a big responsibility, they know what they're getting into. So we generally get the best of the best in the district that apply for it in the first place, and they're really committed to doing the work. So no matter who we pick, it's going to be someone good. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but also, does that process follow down to the secretary and treasurer that you have?
Oh, thank you. Great. That's a fantastic question. So the first step is getting getting next year's governor and lieutenant governor in place, right? Or at least selected. And then they actually work with the current governors to select the team that's going to be there, because they're going to be working with them for the most part. Usually our governors are seniors, so they're going to be gone, or at least on to their next thing. So yeah, we let the new governor and lieutenant governor, similar to with the president, right, selecting his cabinet or her cabinet, we select the lieutenant governor, and the governor select their leadership team through a similar application process. So as soon as that's why we do the applications for the governors so early in March, because then we get them in place, and by April and May, they'll have time before the end of school year to reach out and recruit their team. And area directors are nominated by their clubs, but they're also selected by the leadership team. So once that sort of cabinet is in place of the secretary, treasurer, marketing, publicity team, outreach team, then they help to select the area directors.
Peter, this is Vicky.
Yes, hi, Vicky.
Hi, do you have a handout that describes what the job of the governor and lieutenant governor and all that entails? I know that we have one for like Interact, but is there such a thing as an Interact council? Do you have something that you can share with us in which you have the descriptions of the responsibilities of each position and that kind of thing? Absolutely.
I could do that on the back end. I don't have them right here to share, but I could certainly email them out to folks. And I might even do that through Art, possibly to the whole cohort. But if you want to drop your email in the chat, I will make sure that I save that, and that I get you all that information. Yeah, we have job descriptions for each of at least the big roles, and I think all the way down to area director. And I could share the applications too if you wanted to take a look.
Do they have bylaws in a constitution also?
Yep, they have their own bylaws, and they have their own modus operandi. But yeah, they have. I believe they've written bylaws, and then it's also incorporated into the bylaws at the district level too, as far as the chair governance of it. Thank you all for sharing your emails. I'll share my contact info as well as soon as we're done. So we talked a bit about recruitment and who the folks are on the district council. I really appreciate the questions about how to get started, because I think obviously that's the biggest challenge. I love the idea of doing the quarterly, right, or the regular check-in, the regular convening. That I agree. I think if you continue to do that and continue to show the value of that coming together, then this kind of structure will bubble to the top. because at the end of the day, these kids want to serve, they want to do more, they want to grow, and the best way they can do that is together. So, okay, so training, how do we support this structure, right? So yeah, one thing is regular meetings. So the district council meets about once a month, and then sometimes every 2 weeks when and sometimes weekly when they're planning big events like Fall Leadership Conference. Our district council meets generally on Saturday mornings, pretty much right now. I think next week actually I'll be, or week after, I'll be in a meeting with my Interact council at the same time. They have, a pretty regular agenda in terms of just going over what's happening, where are the numbers at on our fundraising, any big issues to discuss, any big events coming up. And then they generally have time to either have a guest speaker or someone come and talk about a project that they might want Interact to get involved in. And we get, as you can imagine, with 133 clubs and 6,000 interactors, we get a lot of pitches. We have Rotarians coming from all over the place to pitch the best project they've ever heard of, that they can't wait for our interactors to get involved in. We also have interactors like Walker, who you heard from earlier about her tutoring program. She actually reached out to me separately, I'm sure maybe a lot of you, or a lot of Interact chairs, and asked to come speak at our district council and pitch her project. We get a lot of those. I can't say that we have our student have the bandwidth to take them all on, and that's one area where Julie and I are very cognizant, and we try to we don't deflect anything. If the students want to hear about something, we let them know about it. If they want to hear about it, they can schedule it. But we also let them know that bandwidth is limited, right? And they're all doing a million and one things, and the number one focus should be on the projects that they've chosen for this year, and the service they've decided to work on. Marie, did you have and then Becky?
I just had a quick question, and I put it in the chat, but I realize you're presenting it. It's hard.
I got it. Yeah, no, I just saw it. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, the key thing is, as we're all thinking about developing this, what does your district do to allocate funding to support this kind of project? Because that's a big piece of it. You've got 2 conferences, you've got some internet issue. You've got some infrastructure, as well as youth protection. And I would imagine a fairly robust background check system in place for the adults that work. Anyway, just quick.
Absolutely, yeah. So on that last part, we do follow all the youth protection procedures, right? Any adults like myself or any of the school advisors and Rotarian advisors have to be fully youth certified. That's definitely true. As far as budgeting goes, we do get a small allocation from our district for operating expenses. So primarily for events, food, resources like our paying for our website, our email listserv, things like that. But I wouldn't say it's robust. I'd have to look at the exact number, but it's not a very robust number. Most of the money that the students raise obviously goes into their projects, and we donate anywhere from $40,000 to sometimes up to $100,000 a year in a really good year between the 2 projects. We split it between the 2 projects. Usually the international project will get more money, and then the community project will get more volunteer hours. That's really how they like to donate their efforts. But we make a lot of our operating money actually comes from FLC actually every year. So there is a cost to attend FLC that it's low. It's not usually, it's like $15 in that area. I don't think it's gotten as high as 20, but it's getting there. But that also gets the kids shirts and fun swag and a lot of food, right? But we do recoup enough from that we're able to handle all of our general operating expenses for the year. I would love for the district to be more supportive in that regard. I'm definitely working on that. And they recognize, I think, the value, but they also have a lot of projects to support. And since they kind of see us as, at least in our position, being more self-sustaining, right? It'd be a bigger challenge, I'm sure, with getting started, right? And not having the district structure in place, right? To merit that maybe or make the case to your district that's meritable. But a little seed funding, I think, wouldn't hurt, and that's the pitch I would make. But yeah, they do give us a little bit every year. We just have to, we make do with what we get. And this year it's been a little bit lighter because we've had some challenges. Obviously, everyone's having challenges. But the good news is we've been doing so much virtually. We did a virtual new president's meeting, Fall Leadership Conference, and President's Winter Retreat, our fall leadership conference drew, I want to say, in the hundreds of or I'm sorry, thousands, there's over 1,000 students to the fall leadership conference in one big, at one point they were all in one big Zoom. It was awesome. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
We had workshops, all day workshops, separate Zooms for that. You know, they were having to bounce around to different spaces, and they all, at the end of the day, we had almost just as many. We had very little drop off at the end of the two, you know, each of the 2 days of the conference, meaning that almost all the kids stayed on and were engaged pretty much the whole day, or at least in the afternoon. So it's been really exciting to see. Becky, you had a question. I want to.
Yeah, I'm just, you said you meet at least monthly. Before COVID, did you do that over Zoom?
In our case, we're fairly lucky in that, I mean, we're a big district, but it's big is relative, right? So, I mean, our district is probably from north to south, 70 to, no, like 100 miles, I guess. And we're probably about 30 miles across at the widest. So it's geographically pretty convenient for all the kids to come together in person when we can do that. So we do generally have in-person meetings around a big conference table, depending on the host, but we try to pick a central-ish location so that it's easy enough for the youth to get to. And I'm very big on public transit, so I've always tried to find a space that we can get donated that's near, or we can have access to that's near, public transit, so kids can hop on the train if they want to, or bus, but generally speaking, if they're old enough, they drive themselves there, or they have parents drop them off. But
so you've been meeting via Zoom now this
yes,
past year. How is it compared to your in-person meeting?
It's got pluses, like talking about pros and cons. It has its pluses and minuses. I think one plus is that, at least for me, it forces them to be a little more attentive to what's going on in the meeting and what's being said, what information is being disseminated. Because in the room, it does tend to, and I've done a little bit of sub-teaching. My mom was a teacher, so I definitely know about once you get a bunch of youth in a room, how things can progress or digress. There is that tendency towards chatter or gossip or whispers and sort of drifting a little bit. And I think there's also a little bit more discomfort for some of the students who may not be as used to public speaking or speaking out or being vocal, right? Even though these are really type A kids, some of them are not the most social at first. And I think that this space kind of allows them to get out of that a little more and be a little more vocal, because you have to kind of jump in. You have to kind of, if you want to make your point heard, you have to sort of be assertive. So I do like that. It seems like there's much more attention being paid to what's going on. And also we don't have the ability in every room to have like a PowerPoint presentation or a display or watch a video, which we can do pretty easily on Zoom. But the flip side is that there's just not that connectivity and that camaraderie that's built from being around other people, and youth especially need that kind of social emotional support. So that has been missing, I think, a lot this year, as much as our youth have gotten together in socially distanced small pods, little groups, but we haven't been able to do that in a very large scale way. And the power of Chris showed the video earlier from our district of our fall leadership conference, the power of being in a gym in one of our high schools with 4,000 students, 4,000 at one time. The lights go out and they put on their cell phone lights, and one person is in the middle of all this speaking, one youth is in the middle of all this speaking and talking about the project or about their goals for the year. It's the most inspiring thing I've been a part of, frankly, ever. That's kind of why I love doing this. It's just one reason, but there's nothing like that. There's nothing like the in-person experience. So I can't wait to get back to that. But given that some of your districts are geographically broad, I think there's ways to bring groups together, maybe in smaller pods. But this presents a great opportunity for that, to really be able to bring the youth together in a way that you couldn't before. So does that answer your question? Great. So as far as training, just getting back to the deck and just the topics I wanted to get through, as far as training goes, like I said, the youth, they organize their own trainings and workshops around the 3 big events. So new president's meeting is obviously that. It's incoming over the summer, giving all the club presidents a training in how to do their work and how to how to raise money, how to network, how to build club camaraderie, how to be better leaders. And they take that back and use that to motivate themselves throughout the year. Then the Fall Leadership Conference is when we present our projects, and there's tons of workshops in similar areas. A lot of it centers around actually communications and how to communicate with your sponsoring Rotary Club, how to communicate with each other, and how to better support each other, right? And make sure that issues are being addressed in a fair and equitable way according to the 4-way test. So there's a lot of really great workshops that happen at FLC, and then the President's Winter Retreat is a space for them to look ahead and to plan for the future. And how do they support the clubs? Like I said, District Council is great in that it creates sort of a unified message, a unified theme for the year. It creates more efficiency and effectiveness and consistency across all of the clubs. And it helps, one thing was mentioned earlier, I don't know if it was Becky that said it, but the areas or the different schools competing in sports and other areas, right? There's also a tendency, they're competing for if they're fundraising and if they're doing projects, they're competing for the same dollars too, right? And the same attention. So one thing we can, and it's not so much competing as much as, well, one area is doing a big fundraiser and the other one's doing one at the same time, and they didn't coordinate, so they didn't know, each other was doing it. One thing that District Council does, which is great naturally, is all these things get addressed, right? Each area has to report at each District Council meeting, this is what we're doing, this is when we're planning our events. So they can all look ahead and see, oh, maybe we can coordinate, maybe 2 areas can coordinate on a fundraiser. Oh, you're doing a boba fundraiser? I want to do a boba fundraiser. And do you guys know what boba is, by the way? Sorry, the little pearls in the tea. It's big in the Bay Area. But you kind of get what I'm saying. You're doing a raffle? Oh, we're doing a raffle. Let's do a raffle together. Let's do a dance together. Let's make sure that we're not doing it on the same day or even the same week, so that we can help each other, and also we can have access to the publicity channels that we have exclusively to support our event. So it's really helpful in terms of coordination. That's the number one thing. And then we have an outreach team, like I said, that works with the clubs to help with their club reports, with interactions with Rotarians, because sometimes that can be a challenge the other way. The interactors are trying to reach their Rotary Club sponsor and they don't know who or where that person is anymore. So this District Council actually has a funnel for that, where we have a Google Drive folder that's shared amongst all of the leaders and and depending on who it is, club presidents, and we have a directory of all of our area leaders, all of the club presidents, and then all of the Rotary advisors. So at any given time, if someone needs to know who their advisor is or who their current person is, they can usually go to that and get the right information. And that's something we share out every year with all of our clubs to make sure that they update their information. And because it's a living document, you can update it anytime. So we don't have to worry about sending out one PDF and then updating it 2 days later and sending it out again. So everyone has the current information. It's really helpful to me, because I sometimes need to know who to contact at any given club or an Interact club. So I use that quite a bit myself. And then we also use that drive for financial information and for sharing, bank statements and things like that. Vicky, did you have a question?
Yeah, sorry for interrupting. Do you do anything like a district-wide community service project? I'm just thinking about the power that we have as a Rotary International, and the more we come together. So do you have anything like that? And all the clubs participate towards some community service event or abroad in the district?
Yeah, I probably wasn't as clear about that as I should have been, but with our in our district, at least, each year the students, the leadership picks one community project, what we call a community project, which is really a local nonprofit or a local partner that they want to work with, and then an international partner. And with the community based or the local project, primarily the donation there is in the form of service. So it becomes sort of like their annual service project. They also raise money, that some money goes to that project, but what they do is raise money for projects in sort of a pot. And at the end of the day, they see, okay, how much volunteerism did we do on the community project? How should we divide that pot between what we're going to give to the international project and what's left to give to the community group? This year it's been a challenge because we haven't been able to do the in-person volunteerism as much as we'd like. So we're probably going to end up splitting the pot equally both ways. For example, this year's project, the community-based project, is with the United Way in the Bay Area, and they're doing specifically they wanted to work on COVID relief. So this semester, actually, if they're able to, they would love to get out and do like some very small scale or small pod volunteerism if possible, but primarily they've been looking at giving money to the United Way's COVID Relief Fund, which is funding nonprofits that are working with vulnerable communities here in the Bay Area. And then the international project they chose is it's the UN's World Food Program, which especially particularly in Yemen, where there's a significant amount of food insecurity happening. So they're going to be making a big donation to the World Food Program, which actually incidentally just won the Nobel Peace Prize. So 2 days after they selected it as their project, I was very proud to note that. So that's sort of how it breaks down. Does that answer your question about the community service? And like I said, we get pitched a lot of projects throughout the year, and they do take on clubs, areas, do take on specific projects. Generally speaking, at the district level, though, they focus on the two main projects, and we try to keep them that way. And we also try to remind the area directors that there's so many worthy things out there. You could say yes to everything, right? We're Rotarians. We want to say yes to everything. But at the end of the day, if you say yes to everything, you're not going to be focused enough to be really supportive as much as you can be of any one of those things. So again, quality over quantity. We've got to get into what works and what doesn't. So I feel like I've been talking a lot. Are there any other questions that are bubbling to the top of folks' minds? Feel free to unmute yourselves and shout them out.
So we are just starting, so we don't have governors from council to vote on. So I'm just trying to figure out what would be a fair set of, besides my co-chair and I, to select who the governors would be and all that. Do you have any suggestions, or maybe somebody else has an idea that you're willing to share?
Sure. I would say it's good to have more voices in the room, right? And a nice diverse spectrum of those voices. So I think the chair and the co-chair obviously would be, the district chairs would be the first part of that. It's almost like an ad hoc committee, right? The first time. So they'd be the first step, I'd say. If you happen to have, and we're actually not struggling with this, it's something we're actively working on, but we have struggled in the past. If you happen to have connection with any Interact alumni, right? Or especially if there's any Rotarians who were Interactors in high school, so current leadership at your district, right? You try to involve them because they're going to know best about what would work and what wouldn't. And then if there's any way to, and then I would say, yeah, try to find, ask of the Interact club presidents if they're, open that up to them. Maybe select 2 or 3 of them that are good, are really thoughtful, right? And invite them to participate too. So that way you have a good mix of adults, students, people who are more knowledgeable about Interact, folks who maybe aren't. Maybe involve someone from the district level who doesn't know much about Interact, right? So they can have like that completely outsider perspective. Because I find that can be really helpful in terms of the basics, right? Identifying what are the basics of leadership you need, right? Because even myself, like I know my district council, and I have my biases, of course. Like I know sort of who are my go-to students. Not that any of them are not go-to. It's more just I know the cream of the crop, and I know where to go to get things done. But sometimes an outside perspective helps too.
And one last question. Can you tell me what the role of the Interact Council is within the district council, and how do they interact?
That's a good question. They don't really, in our case, in terms of having a seat at the table. Yeah, they really don't. They interact through us, the chairs, but even I don't have a seat at the district table. That's Chris, our youth services chair. So indirectly, they have access, and we try to make sure that we address everything that we can that'll help support them at the district level. But unfortunately, there's not a lot of interaction there. They probably have more interaction with their individual sponsoring clubs than with the district itself. I like to. I don't want to say that we like to keep it that way, but at the same time, there's, as y'all know, and as we all know, there's so much. I hate to use the word bureaucracy, but it's kind of what it is, right? There's a lot of institutionalized bureaucracy in Rotary. We're going to be leaving in about a minute, but I'll get through this real quick. That I kind of want to shield them from, but I also want to let them know exists because it'll help them later in life. So we try to give them a taste of what that's like. Recently, we've been trying to, the district manages our money, our bank accounts primarily because it has to funnel through the foundation, the district foundation. They won't let us start our own 501c3. So there has to be a lot of interaction on the financial side that we do. And we try to involve them as much as possible in that, but it's, you know, it's one of those things where we try to shield them as well too, because they have too much going on already to manage themselves. So, well, thank you so much for joining me. And like I said, I will share my information out. You did questions already. I'll share this information out later with y'all. And thank you for dropping your emails in the chat. And I'll see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.